Yeah.
Fair enough. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. For those that do not know, and I guess you've all realised by now after Jamie's words, that Jamie's for some reason elected us as his best men. I assume he couldn't find one decent one to do the job, so here we are. So we'd like to say a few words that we've prepared about the experiences that we've had while we've known Jamie. And at this point, I'm going to hand over to John, who is able to string a sentence together without falling over his worms. So, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. John Ethcote.
Okay. Good afternoon and welcome to the biggest day of my life. Oh, sorry, can I start again? Yeah, okay, good, yeah, okay. All right, I'll start again. Good afternoon and welcome to the biggest day of Jamie and Maria's life. I have had the pleasure of knowing Mr. Jamie Wall here for the best part of 20 years, when we both met in Class 2 of Boxmoor Primary School. We were perhaps not what you would classify as best friends, but we certainly tolerated each other. The day we became best mates was when two young boys from a posh part of Hemel Hempstead were thrust into the proverbial lion's den of secondary school. Once we were surrounded by children brought up with morals, family values, boundaries and rules. However, we soon found ourselves in a terrifying new world. Some may say our friendship was not formed by choice, but perhaps survival. Jamie epitomised his survival strategy when in the first week of secondary school, he was the first in our form to get detention. This was for pushing a girl head first into the back of a chair. To this day, Jamie is still adamant she slipped and fell.
She did.
So, when Jamie asked me to be one of his best men, as you may suspect, it evoked all the cliché reactions of delight, excitement, and fear of this speech, the poison chalice it can be. So, do I perform the traditional route as best man and tell you all the embarrassing stories I have on Jamie? Or do I take the higher road and only tell you the good points? I can tell you there have been many sleepless nights and deep, dark moments of deciding what I should do, what I should say, and what I shouldn't say. And so, I have decided not to tell you about Jamie blocking up my aunt's toilet when we stayed with her in America. Or whilst playing wrestling at school, he managed to dodge a kid swinging a metal pole, only for him to hit himself. All the time he chose to walk out naked of his bedroom whilst I was staying there to let the postman in. An image that still haunts me to this very day. Or even the time he got so drunk on a mixture of vodka and coke and tried to place a girl's phone down her cleavage. So, well then, as I've covered what I'm not going to divulge, I'll tell you some positive traits of Jamie's character. But to start with, he's different. He has an amazing ability to repetitively quote 1,000 upon 1,000 of lines from films, comedies and TV shows to the extent that you can recite them yourself even if you've never actually watched them. His organisation skills and keen eye for detail. For example, if you move his stuff even by a single millimetre, he notices straight away and he will inform you.
I never dusted his bedroom once.
No. I think I got thrown out of your house once for touching one of his beds. And also, unfortunately Mr. Tom Hunt's not here today because I believe he's unwell, but Mr. Tom Hunt would be able to attest to this. He has the ability to ring card tricks, don't you, Jamie? Yeah, you remember that time. And then finally, this is the most important one, I believe, his ability to believe he is right in an argument and fight his corner, even when there is scientific proof that he's incorrect. But what I can really tell you about Jamie, he is a loyal friend, and 20 years truly testifies this. In fact, actually Jamie mentioned this, but in fact I would like to share with you a story of when Jamie proved how much of a friend he has always been. So, whilst we were at university, I invited everyone to come and visit me in Wales for my 20th birthday. And true to form, Jamie here swiftly replied with a huge yes, as best mates do. So, I arranged a weekend to a strict schedule, the plan being Hope you remember it now, Jamie. Jamie arrives for mid-afternoon. We all then drive down to Swansea, have a meal out with Adam, yeah, and make our way over to Adult Kids Zone by 7 o'clock.
It's not as sad as it sounds.
Then we all head back to mine and share university yarns over a few cold beers and cider, because as you may know, Jamie hates beer, just so you buy him the wrong drink later. Well then, the day arrives, it's mid-afternoon, and no Jamie. And we all know Jamie, he's pretty punctual, so this was quite unlike him. So I waited until 5 o'clock, and there was still no Jamie. However, to give him credit, he sent a text message, saying, "Sorry dude, a bit late, I've got a bit lost." Right, so I could cope with not having dinner. I mean, really, food, you can take it or leave it. But I'm not missing Adult Kids Zone. Not on my birthday. So I told him we would see him when he got back with Adam. So after Adult Kids Zone, we returned to my accommodation. And there, without a doubt, the man I could always rely on. The man that has been my friend since we were the size of dwarves.
Although we are still waiting for Jamie to grow.
Yeah.
And thank God, we sat down and shared our stories over those cold beers and cider. And all was good in the world. I forgave him. Then I asked him, "So how did you get lost for several hours?" But you see, in our relationship, friendship, Maria, beg your pardon, we tell no lies. He admitted to me that he had missed most of my birthday celebrations because he had met a girl. What's a friends for, eh? So I asked the obvious question, is she fit? Jamie replied far more eloquently, "She is beautiful." I nearly forgot to actually ask what her name was. He replied, "Maria."
Good.
You managed to remember. Now I do realise this isn't the best example of friendship. There's been better examples, Jamie, don't you worry. But it is a tale of love, a love that we have seen develop over the years and brought together today. I can tell you I thought I would hate the woman that stole my Jamie away from me. Fortunately, I found out what a wonderful person Maria is. Especially that night we spent hours upon hours talking about a shared love, a shared passion. If you haven't guessed it, it was about Jamie. And I can say, Maria, I forgive you. Well, partially forgive you. So before I hand you back over to the incapable hands of Mr. Bessemer, my mum, who has also known Jamie since we were the size of dwarfs, asked me to share a quick story of when we went on a Year 2 school trip to the British Museum. So whilst queuing for the toilets after an exciting day trip to the museum, all the class, including myself and Jamie, were queuing up on this big, long, stone bench, waiting our turn to go to the toilet before our long journey back home. My mum noticed Jamie becoming incredibly impatient. Without warning, he began pushing child after child after child off this bench until eventually it was his turn by default. I guess the moral of this story, be warned. If you find yourselves queuing up for a drink at the bar later, or queuing up to go to the toilet, and you notice Jamie coming towards you, by the love of God, let him through. It's just not worth it. Thank you. I'll hand you back to Mr. Bellamy.
Well, thank you for your kind words, John. I'm sure they're in there somewhere. And thank you for saving these people from having to listen to me drone on. Thinking of these lovely people, there's a few thanks that do need to be said. So hopefully with everyone's glasses full, we'd like to raise them some more to serve people in the room. So to start with, we'd like to thank the bridesmaid and the maid of honour, Nikki, for their fantastic job and also looking spectacular today, only outdone by, of course, the bride herself. So to the bridesmaid and the maid of honour. Cheers.
Cheers. Shorts.
We'd like to thank Jamie's parents, who John and I know have been a huge. John and I know they've been a huge support to him over the years, and as we've probably all pointed out and said, that he wouldn't be the man he is today without them. So again, Glasses raised. I'd like to say thank you, Sarah and Steve. Cheers. Also, we'd like to thank Maria's parents who have made a journey from Slovakia to be here on this precious day. So I'd like to say Dakujem Maria Janovi. Cheers. And finally, thank you for listening to us all ramble on. So before we take our seats, we'd like everyone to raise a toast to that happy couple who don't need our best wishes, but they have them anyway. To Mr. and Mrs. Wall.
To Mr. and Mrs.
Oh, thank you.
Right, actually, before we take our seats, you may have noticed this in front of you, so I'm going to show a short presentation